Hello, so we're James and Emily in our self-converted 4x4 2019 Mercedes Sprinter. We've been in this van now since October 2020, so almost a year now, or just over a year. And previous to that, we lived in our self-converted bus that we had previous to this. Side of the van we have our kitchen. At the moment we don't have running water. That's something that is on our to-do list this winter. We have our sink, which in most vans becomes a storage compartment. Up here we have a spice rack that we built in, our sanitization station for when we're using the bathroom. We actually found this piece of wood on the side of the road, and then we eventually just planed it down, refinished it, resurfaced it, and then we sanded it to 10,000 grit. And then over here we do have our stove. We have a double burner stove, and then we have an oven as well. But we didn't want to see the oven on a daily basis, so we built this cabinet door. Down below we do have storage, so pots and pans go down here, our vacuum machine and our vacuum bags go in here. And then behind there we have our propane tank as well. In here we have our gray water. So this is just a 5-gallon portable water jug off Amazon, and then the sink is here. From the bottom of the sink, it just goes straight into the gray water tank, so then we can monitor how much water is in the tank, and then we can just go dump it when we need to. So fresh water in the garage, we have two 15-gallon tanks. We have one tank on each side of the van so that we can try and level out the weight between the two tanks. Here we have our drawers. So if you notice, we just have these latches we got from Lee and Valley. They don't lock or have those little pop-out buttons that have those little clips on the inside. So what we did is we have a steel plate on the back of this cabinet, and then we have rare neodymium magnets on the back of the drawer. So when this goes in, you'll hear it. That's just hitting the steel plate, and that magnet will actually keep it in place. And we've had no issues with our drawers coming undone, and it's a nice clean look. And it's less to fuss with over time as well. And with these handles, they also lay flat, so when we're walking by, we won't give ourselves a Charlie horse, which is nice. And then when I built these drawers, they were 4 inches. Which was a little bit big for a drawer, so we built a compartment so that we can put plates and larger utensils underneath and a flask in case of emergency. We designed this space here, it was so that we could put a cat food can sideways, so that would fit in. And then more dry storage. And then in the bottom there we have a liquor cabinet, so that's where the rum bottles, beer cans, wine bottles go, and the same thing there, we designed that cabinet to accommodate your standard size wine bottle and a 750 liter bottle of vodka, gin, rum, etc. So it's very purpose built, a lot of our cabinet spaces. So moving on to this side, we have our upper cabinets, so his and hers clothing, and these are just regular brackets from Home Depot that you can get. They're like $10 a piece to keep the doors up when we're using them, and then they just go down flat like that. We have our day bed chase lounge that we built out. So here the cats like to spend a lot of their time, and then also if you want to look out the back windows during the daytime, you can lay here. Down below we have where the business happens. So this is a Sunmar toilet from Home Depot. It's about $700. It's a little bit cheaper and a cheaper alternative to the Nature's Head. Eventually this will have a drawer slide that will come out, and it's just number 1 container in the front, number 2 container in the back, and it has a fan that just vents 24/7 a day, and then we just have a pipe down the back that goes out the bottom of the van to vent it out. Over here we have more USB outlets that we have plenty capabilities for charging all of our electronics, our iPads, iPhones. We have a 300 watt JBL Bluetooth speaker. So this was purpose built for this speaker. We had bought this speaker first, and then we built the day bed around the speaker. So this is a big giant storage box for the speaker itself. And then for our cats as well, we have our cat litter container. So that's their little place, and then we cut that out for a cat. We have our fridge down here. So we have an 85 liter unique fridge. So in the front we have our refrigeration area. And again, it's only empty right now because we're staying on a friend's property this weekend. And then we have our freezer as well. So we have it defrosted right now because we want to clean it out. And then we have a table that we built that slides out from there. So this is actually plywood. And then what we did was we glued a bunch of plywood pieces together at a 45-degree offset. And then we cut them straight on the table saw, and then that allowed us to make these channels. So we did a chevron pattern here, a couple straight pieces of plywood, and then we did a diamond pattern up here, straight piece, and then a half chevron. And then we just outlined it in oak. And then we have the bedroom back here. We sometimes do shift work and sometimes our schedules don't align. So a big part of our design was that we wanted to have 2 separate areas. So we have pocket doors, so that if one person is sleeping in, the other person can get up and kind of minimize the amount of noise that we're making. So we're kind of cognizant of each other. And then those just go flat inside of the wall that we built, so that they're out of the way. So underneath the cabinet here, we have 4 puck lights that we installed. These ones we routed flat with the plywood itself, so the puck lights actually sit up inside of the wood instead of sitting on top of it, so you get a more clean, modern look. And then we do have an LED strip back here as well. These lights can be any color that you want, so we can go blue, red, purple. And then for the roof as well, a lot of people do the puck lights, so we kind of wanted to do something a little bit different. So we used the LED strips going down the entire roof, and then when we got to the roof vent here, we made sure to continue it on so that it's in line. Another thing you will notice is that our vent fan here isn't actually center in our roof. This is a center line here, and a vent fan is shifted over. 2 reasons we did that was when we're using the stove, it allows us to have the vent fan right above the stove. So it vents quite nicely, and especially when you're cooking with oil and a bunch of other things, it vents directly up, so you don't get a lot of buildup of oil on your ceiling. And the shelves as well, like these are completely clean, and they've been that way since we built it. The other reason we did it was our solar system on top. We wanted to maximize our roof space. So this allows us to put a 50-watt panel on the opposite side, and same thing in the front. Our vent is off shifted or off axis a bit, so that we can put a 50-watt panel beside the vent. Rather than having it directly in the middle and then losing that space on both sides of the vent, it allows us to maximize our footprint on the roof. We have a complete Renogy system. I always recommend when doing your electrical system that you choose one company and one company only, whether that be Vitron, Renogy, or anybody else, and buy only their components. That way, if you have a problem, they're not blaming each other. It's a completely Renogy system. Anything goes wrong, I can call up Renogy and say, hey, look, I'm having this issue. And I've had great support from Renogy. Whenever I've contacted them, they've gotten back to me within 24 hours to 48 hours, and I've had great support from them. We've run them for 1.5 to 2 years now, and we've had no issues. In the garage, we have 400 amp hours of lithium. We have a 3000 watt inverter, 60 amp solar charge controller, which is more than enough for what we have footprint wise, but it allows us to add on to the system if we want. And we have a 40 amp hour DC to DC charger as well, so that when we are driving, we're taking full advantage of the power being created by the engine. And if we are off grid and there is a lack of solar, then we can turn on the engine and use the engine as a generator for about half an hour just to recharge and replenish. And with our inverter as well, we do have the capability of shore power, and that can charge up our system, but it's very rarely ever used. So my biggest thing is it's the holy trinity. You have 3 ways of charging so that you always have a way to recharge your batteries no matter where you go.
How much solar do you have?
So right now we have 400 watts on the roof, and then with the offset of the vents as well, we're going to add another 200 watts.
Can you tell me how you insulated the van?
So we just opted to go for spray foam. We had it done by a professional company. They came in, they spray foamed the entire van, the doors, the roofs, and the walls. And in the floor we have just 1-inch paint insulation foam. So from the outside of the body to the inside wall, we have approximately 2 inches of spray foam, which gives us an R value of about 14 to 15. So we have a S-bar heater, which is what you saw in the bench seat that we built. It's an S2D2L, and we've had great success with it. We do have to make sure we're cognizant of the service intervals of them. But we've also learned how to service them ourselves, so that's something that we can do ourselves and we're able to take care of, so it's not that big of a stressor having to wait for a shop or waiting for someone to become available. And then also as well, we do keep spare service parts on hand, so we have all the parts that we need to service our diesel heater. And having those on hand is also great because, especially with the pandemic that has gone on, it's, you know, very hit or miss on what you're able to get from the supply chain. So we have 5 services worth of parts on hand, and it's not just for us, it's also for our friends that we have in the community as well. If they have an issue or they have a S-bar that they're having trouble with, if they have the same unit as us, we can go out and help them and have the parts on hand. So these are double pane Dometic windows that we purchased from someone off of Kijiji, and then we built a plywood frame to go around it to fill in the space. And then we also have the covers that has to be glued back in place because it's come loose. But these are great because at nighttime it's blackout blinds. The only thing that you can see is the tiny little holes, and unless you were looking for it off the street, you would never even notice that they were there. So we have these 2 on both windows. And a great feature of these windows as well is that we can open these windows. So when we have the vents running in the summertime and we're in an area that isn't quite buggy, we can open our windows and get it fresh air that way as well. And our cats love to sit here and watch the world go by. Once in a while they'll jump down, go for a little wander, and then run straight back because they realize the outside world is scary. So this is our bedroom. We have Smudge, our white cat, and then we have Oreo, our black cat. Oreo is a bit more chill than Smudge is. Smudge seems to be more inquisitive and curious of the world, but then she gets very scared. And Oreo is the one that likes to go on little wanders outside of the van, but they always come home and they don't actually need harnesses, which is kind of amazing. If you come in a little closer, we have a 7-inch monitor here. So we do have cameras all the way around the van, which record 24/7. So should anything happen to the van while we're not here, it's going to be documented. And it records to a hard drive that is hidden somewhere in the van and buried, so it's very inaccessible to get to. And that's just nice to have because sometimes, you know, if you're sleeping in a place that's unfamiliar to you, or you hear a noise in the night, or you know, it's peace of mind to be able to switch that on and see outside of the van. In the front here we have our partition, and then we have individual lights that we installed as well, like similar to the lights that you saw on the cabinet there. And with these lights we put them on individual switches, so that if you only want one light on while you're laying in bed reading a book, you're not disturbing the other person that's sleeping. But if you want full coverage, you can turn them all on. And same thing, these all have color switching capabilities so that we can be whatever color we want. We have our upper cabinets here, so this is where our toiletries go, our shower gear, bulky sweaters that we have. And then we installed an iPad mount on this side of the cabinet, so we can have our iPad here. And then when we're laying in bed, we can watch a movie and just have our iPad up here so it doesn't fall on your face like it always does when you're watching your phone, your iPad. So that's really convenient to have, and it folds flat against the side of the roof, or the side of the cabinet here. We have our secondary Mat's air fan that we have, and again, the center line of our van is about here. This one's off shifted that far so that we can put a 50-watt solar panel on this side of the roof. And then we have our nano leaf that we built. So these are light panels that you can buy from Best Buy, Home Depot, what other computer stores seem to exist these days. We got ours from Best Buy and we had this in our apartment. And then when we moved into our bus, we wanted to put it in the bus, but we didn't have space for it. And then when we moved into the van, we built this triangle so that we could house the panels. There's 15 individual light panels and they all have different patterns. So you can choose depending on what kind of mood you're in. And then they also have a music sensor so they can go to the music as well. So this is a nice light to have, and you can also custom program the lights as well. So if you wanted one orange, one off, one white, one off, etc., you could do so. So that's really nice to have in here. So we do have a 10-inch ND mattress. It's the best mattress we have ever owned in my 30 years of existence. I highly, highly, highly recommend them. We have the 10-inch model, and it's a queen short. So it's approximately 5 inches shorter head to toe than a regular queen size bed. And they're also designed for RV beds. So a lot of RV beds are queen short beds. So you have the width of a queen size bed, but the length is a little bit shorter. So we have one of those, and I've only had one bad night in the van of sleeping, and it was because there was a hurricane coming through and it was incredibly windy. But sleep quality wise, the best sleep I've had in my life. We did the reverse cookie cutter, as I call it, because most vans that you see will have the bed in the back of the van stationary, or you have like the dining area that folds down into a bed. When we had our bus, we had a pull-out couch that would fold flat into a bed, and we used to hate having to make the bed every night, pull it out, put it together and whatnot. So when we opted to do our second van build, a stationary bed was the direction we were going to go, and it's nice just to be able to come home, jump in bed, and not have to worry about having to make the bed every day, and then waking up in the morning and have to worry about putting the bed away, etc. And then we did the reverse cookie cutter, as I call it. We put the bed in the middle. There's a few reasons we did this. One was that most of the time the garage ends up underneath your bed, and that's where a lot of the weight ends up. And sometimes when you have a lot of the weight in the back of the van, you put stress on the back suspension, and the back end of the van will actually slide down a little bit. So with having the bulk of our equipment in the middle of the van, the weight of our van is evened out between the front and the back suspension, which is nice. The other thing was that being stealth, the sound of a car door opening and closing is a lot more stealth than the sound of a van door opening and closing. So that was a consideration that we had as well, was the clunk is more of a natural sound in a neighborhood than the zhut, zhunk, clunk. And the third thing was that when we had our kitchen and our day bed that we built as well, we just wanted to be able to open the back doors and just have the back of the van completely open. So whether or not we're laying in bed or we're in the kitchen or on the day bed that we built, we can just lose the entire side of our back of the van. And a lot of the spots that you go to, you have to back in the van into a parking spot. So it gives us the ability to open the back doors and just be completely open. And one thing we got with this van from factory or from the dealership was it has the automatic sliding door. So if we are laying in bed and we're camping somewhere, we're in the wilderness somewhere, we can just press the button on the key fob and this door will just open. So you can be laying here and look outside, etc. We were going to cut a hole in the partition to access the front, but after being in this van for a year, we've never been in a situation where that's been a dire need, and we've just gotten into the habit of going around to the back of the van. And we've done stealth camping, we've done city camping, been in lots of different provinces, and we've never had an issue. We've, knock on wood, we've never had to knock. So it works for us, and cutting a hole in the partition we're not going to do anymore. We're just going to build up the wall and finish it. Good girl. So one part that we really focused on with our van build, obviously having two traveling companions with us, is making sure that we're cognizant of them when it came to the van itself. So the windows is one of the reasons we have windows. We didn't want windows to begin with, but because we had them, we installed two windows in the back of the van, and as soon as we did that, they were always at the back of the van watching the world go by. So that's why we have windows, otherwise we wouldn't have. Another thing is just making sure your cat has a place to call home and a safe space for them. So you can see that we have our upper cabinets here, and then we have one more over here. So this is only for Smudge and Oreo. We're not allowed to use this cabinet at any time for anything else, no matter how tight we are in storage. It's always for them and nothing else goes in there, no matter what. So that is their safe space. And then another thing as well is that when they're in their cat cubby, we don't remove them from the cat cubby ever, unless it's an emergency. So that they know they can go there, and that's where they're going to be safe, and that's the one place that is theirs no matter what. We also make sure we always have plenty of plush blankets on the bed, because they love to sleep on those and it keeps them warm. So that's another thing we've done for them. But definitely, if you have a traveling companion with you, make sure you dedicate a space to them, because especially when it comes to felines, they're very territorial, and when cats don't feel like they have a safe place to go or they don't have their territory, they're going to start marking their territory, and that's a very strong smell inside of a van. So thankfully we've never had that issue with them, but it's definitely recommended that if you are going to have a companion coming with you, especially if it's a cat, making sure that they have a safe place to go and that space is dedicated for them and them only. We have our sliding drawer for our 2 bites that we built out. It needs a bit of work, but it does come out and it goes back in. So you can see here we have one of our 30-gallon water tanks, which isn't hooked up as of yet. We're still working on that. And then we have our electrical system down below. And we have another 15-gallon water tank on the other side. Our heater is on that side as well, and our battery rack for our batteries. So they're all on that side. Main fuse blocks and everything is in the middle. And then we also have a relay panel that we built for all of the accessories on the van, such as our light bar, air compressor, train horns, etc. So that's all here. And we have a switch panel above the driver's seat. We've wired in extra relays and extra switches so that in the future, if we want to add anything else to the van, additional lights on the sides or the back, we have the ability to expand without having to tear apart the entire van again to run wires and relays, etc. So that's pre-wired in for anything that you might want to add at a later date. Here you can see our mattress again. So it's a 30 or the 10-inch mattress. And one thing that is a huge lifesaver with a bed inside of a van, which every time you go to make your bed, it's almost like you're in the Olympics. It should be an Olympic sport. Is that we got the corner keepers so that it keeps the mattress cover on and the bed sheet on, and that is a godsend as well. And then as well, we also put ventilation holes. So we chose Vanlife for a few reasons. The main reason is we wanted to stop paying rent, or at least start paying into something. So our first build was a way to save some money and try and get ahead a little bit. And then we decided with this van, buying it new from dealership, that we would have the warranty, which was a huge motivation for us, because with our first build we had a lot of engine problems and we spent a lot of money always fixing that build. That allowed us to save some money and then buy this van, and then in a couple of years we will sell this van. So if anyone's looking, let us know. And eventually we do want to buy some land and build a tiny house. But choosing Vanlife was also about being able to travel and have home wherever you went. There's a very common phrase between van lifers that home is where you park it, and that's absolutely true. And then also just being able to downsize and live more minimal and have a less impact on, you know, the world that we live in, and own less and have less that we have to keep hold of. Like, we went from living with roommates to living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and when you do that, you just feel like you need to fill the space. Like, you need to buy all the kitchen equipment, and then you have to buy a couch and a TV and a mantle and a desk and dining room furniture and a bed, and like, you fill up the space. But then you get to a point where you're like, how did I end up with all this stuff? So living this way, it really makes you think about what you're buying. And when you look at something that you say to yourself, oh, I would really like that, the first question that comes to your mind now is, where can I put that, and where are we going to store that, and is it really something that I need or I'm going to use on a daily basis? So that was our main motivation, and just being able to travel and, you know, have this with us everywhere we go is absolutely amazing. So the benefits we found to van life, you know, it doesn't matter wherever you park. You could be downtown Toronto, you could be in the middle of a forest, you can be parked, you know, oceanside, the Instagram van life that everyone sees, and you have home with you wherever you go. And, you know, when you come in here, you don't necessarily notice what's outside anymore, because this is what you're used to and this is your home, and that's the best part about it. Saving money is a big one. The last part is just the people that you meet. You know, a lot of people will just be like, if you're in the same area, you've maybe never met each other ever in your life, and you're in the same area as somebody else, and you're like, hey, let's grab a beer, or let's do coffee, or let's go to a campsite together and, you know, spend the night together at a campsite by a campfire. And 99% of the people that we have met are people that we want to meet up with again, and people that, you know, share the same interests and the same hobbies and the same life that we do, and you can relate to those kind of people as well. It's a very non-judgmental group of people. It's very open-minded people, and people that are very welcoming, no matter, you know, whether you're in a Dodge Caravan or SUV or, you know, a Sprinter or bus or whatever you choose to embark in this life with, is that everyone's welcoming no matter what. And that's a big part of it. Like, we've made some great friends from embarking on this journey. Challenges is the isolation, for sure. You know, there are times where you might go a month and you're just, you know, you and your partner, and that's just it. And it can be very isolating, for sure. Other disadvantages are the stigma that the lifestyle comes with. People are like, oh, you live in a van, is everything okay? And I'm like, I look around the van, I'm like, everything's great. You know, and they're like, well, if you need a place to stay, you let me know. And sometimes we'll even go to friends or families, and they're like, you know, we have a guest bedroom that you can stay in, it's not a big deal, you're not intruding or anything. And I'm like, no, like, I want to sleep in your driveway in my van. Like, that's home to me. Like, my bed is way more comfortable than the 50-year-old mattress that's in your guest bedroom. And I got my blankets and I got my cats. What more do I need? Right, Oreo? Building a van, and the advice that goes with building a van. I mean, this might turn into a documentary, a couple hours long. First one is don't do a second build before the first one's even done. That's definitely a big one. If you're in a relationship with somebody, if you make it through the first build, don't buy a second build and do it all over again. It's not good for your relationship. I will tell you that much right now. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of heartache. It's a lot of frustration. You know, it takes a lot of effort to get to the Instagram stage. And that's something that's also very prominent when you meet someone else that has built their van is, you know, you'll share a lot of laughs between each other because you've been through very similar things, but you're laughing because of all the tears that you shed. It's a commitment for sure. It will take twice as long as you think it will take, and financially it will add up very quickly. But the biggest advice I can give for someone is don't do the second build right away. Enjoy the build that you were in and live in it, and you will naturally make modifications over time, and invest your money where it counts, because those are the things that are going to take care of you when van life gets tough. I mean, I think this lifestyle suits a lot of people. I don't think there's any one group of people that, you know, you can kind of characterize as the ideal van lifer or the ideal nomad. You know, you just have to be, I just find you have to be more carefree than most people. You have to be a little bit handy, for sure, to understand your build and understand what went into it and be able to fix things, you know, when they stop working, or be able to explain to someone what isn't working so they can walk you through it. Being carefree, being easygoing, non-judgmental of people. I would say those are the main three things I would look for in somebody that embarks on this journey. And someone that likes to travel as well, obviously. When we first got into van life, stealth was a concern. You know, when you first get into this lifestyle, you think everyone's watching you and everyone's looking at you and everybody knows, and, you know, everyone's watching out through the blinds when you're parked on a city street somewhere. But that's just not the case. I parked in Toronto for about a year, 8 months to a year, and nobody knew, or if they did know, they didn't care. There's certain components behind stealth, if that is a concern to you, that you need to be cognizant of. You know, if your van's beat up and falling apart, someone's going to notice your van. It's going to be noticeable. But if you just have a cargo van that's built out on the inside with a couple windows, no one's going to bat an eye at that. If you have giant tire rack on your back door and giant containers, and you have a giant monstrosity of a roof rack, and you have van life stickers and all this other stuff, then people will notice you. When it comes to the outside, we haven't done much. We've had the van wrapped to protect the paint, because sprinters are known for rusting, and the cost of the wrap was cheaper than any paint remediation would be down the road. Our roof rack is incredibly low profile. Looking at our van, you can't see the solar panels in between the rails, and our roof rack is only 3 inches above the roof line. The more you live this lifestyle, the more you either don't care about being stealth, or you tend to realize that not everyone is watching you. You have to be mindful of where you park. I'm obviously not going to park in front of somebody's house in the middle of a residential area. If I'm in a city or a town, I'm going to choose, you know, the boat launch or a trailhead, or I'm going to park in an industrial area or someplace you can park at Walmart, etc. You know, don't go parking in front of someone's house, directly in front of their home, in front of their neighbor, etc. Like, there's common courtesy such as that. But just over time, stealth is just less of a concern. You have other concerns to address. My personal philosophy is just live for today and worry about tomorrow when it comes. Live your best life, and whether or not that's just today and tomorrow isn't going to be there, then you've had a good time. You know, living this lifestyle has enabled us to see amazing places in this country, and given us amazing experiences, and we met amazing people. But we just live for the moment, and that's it.
And where can people follow your journey if they'd like to?
So we are on Instagram. We are Can Life Van Life. So a can as in a can of beans. So Vanlife on Instagram is us. And if you want to follow us, we post plenty of cat content as well.
Thanks everyone for watching. If you guys want to see more alternative dwelling tours, a playlist is popping up right now. I'm going to be launching a van life centered podcast very soon here on this channel. And if you live in a van or have and want to be a part of that, you can contact me directly at forrest@differentmedia.ca.